Bentley was still pawing frantically through the dirt when he felt the truck bump up an incline, swing in a wide circle, and stop. Bentley paused in his dog-digging as the lights of the stone yard brightened around him, and the roar of its machinery broke through his frenzy. The truck was backing up. Bentley began to dig again, dirt flying from his hands and out between his legs. He saw stones rolling into the hole he was making, but none of them was black. He was breathing so hard, pleading so hard for his stone to turn up beneath his fingers, that he didn't feel the truck bed begin to tilt until it was too late. The load beneath him slid toward the rear of the truck, carrying him with it. Bentley yelled as he tumbled over, his arms flailing for something to hold on to. He hit an iron bar at the back of the truck. He grabbed it and looked behind him. The truck bed was rising high against the stars. Bentley looked down. A metal trap on the back of the truck was swinging wide. Beneath it there was a drop of 25 feet, ending in a huge rattling machine with its mouth opening for the cascading rock and earth. The noise roared up at Bentley. The load poured out around him. Stones hit him in the back, and boulders bounded past him. His legs were dangling in empty space. His hands were being torn away from the crossbar as the torrent spilled from the back of the truck, taking him out into the air that was sparkling with light, down into the hopper's grinding mouth. He let go. Charlie Phoebe saw the rear trap of the truck swing open. In the flow of yellow earth and gray rock he saw the blue of Bentley's jeans. In the light of the stone yard he saw Bentley grab the hinge bar at the back of the truck, saw the boy dangle for a moment. "Now!" roared a voice of metal and stone. "Now, and the servant of Ombra shall have riches the riches once granted to ass-eared Midas, king of Phrygia." Charlie gibbered like an ape as he darted back and forth in the shadows. He saw Bentley's sneakers flailing in empty space. He saw the little bastard fall. Charlie saw the fall arrested. The boy had grabbed something sticking out of the bank above the crusher. Rocks and dirt showered down in front of him. Charlie leapt into the light that shone like diamonds. He raised the shotgun to his shoulder, flipped off the safety catch, and squinted down the barrels, trying to aim at the kid's head, not his kicking legs or body. Charlie saw McGraw climbing down the bank as the last of the load poured into the crusher. He saw McGraw lose his footing as he reached for Bentley, who was dangling from a root. Charlie saw McGraw's big body bounce off the side of the crusher, hit a metal ladder, and land hard on the ground. Charlie heard Dick Amberstam's .38 go off, a sharp crack in the din of the machinery. Charlie heard a window shatter behind him. He saw Dick standing at the top of the mound beside the dump truck, legs spread, one hand holding the wrist of the hand that pointed the revolver straight at Charlie's head. Charlie ran. He ran back into the shadow and around the corner of the wooden building. Lord Ombra's 7 brains signaled alarm to each other. The fantasists of dreams, repugnant to gods and men, smelled the reek of belief in the evening. It was heavier than the stench of Bentley's reviving will. Somebody else in the stone yard knew that Ombra was there. The dreaded one tasted the syrup of faith in his rock-swallowing mouths. His armor-plated shoulders of stone tightened to strike. His eye at the top of the tower searched the ground, trying to see the new believer. Ombra surveyed the chaos, pain, and madness he had created. He saw Bentley perched on the shuddering lip of the crusher, hanging on with both hands. Prince Ombra saw McGraw clawing at the bank as he tried to stand up. He saw the door of the wooden building fly open and the night manager of the stone yard run into the parking lot, heading for the switch box that would cut off the machinery. The Lord of Nightmares bellowed a command to his servant. Charlie Phoebe's brain sparkled with dreams of riches and death. In another dimension, he saw the manager looking at him with astonishment as Charlie ran across the parking lot. Charlie didn't break stride. He pulled one trigger of the shotgun, felt the kick, and heard the explosion. He ran through a splatter of wet red rubies. He ran toward the biggest diamond in the world. It was beaming at him from the top of a tower. Bentley was holding on to the top of the stone crusher with all his might. He had climbed down into the machine after McGraw fell past him. The crusher was shaking Bentley so hard he thought he was going to come apart. His hair flew as his head was jerked back and forth. His eyes were wobbling in their sockets, and he could barely focus on the belt rolling up from under the crusher. Bentley knew that Ombra's mouth was opening and crashing shut just below him. He knew that his enemy might eat him alive. But the stone's magic was flaring in the beam of the spotlight that glared down at Bentley. The stone of Ra was whispering its immortal summons to valor from inside the bucking, shaking machine. The part of Bentley which was an 8-year-old boy was terrified that he might let go in a moment of panic and fall into the mangling throat of the hopper. That part of him which was being resurrected as a warrior of the borrowed heart commanded him to hold on until he saw the hero's stone spat from the crusher onto the belt, and then risk everything to seize it so that his life would be restored to the purpose of God. His head bobbed on his shoulders, sneakers wedged into the steel ribbing of the crusher's body, and his aching hands gripping the top Bentley held on. He saw a disgorge of gravel spraying onto the moving belt. In it, he saw a momentary flash of light. As the load of gravel shivered apart, he saw the stone of Ra. Bentley crouched for one moment longer, trying not to see the snapping steel mouth beneath him. Then he threw himself with all his might across the hopper's opening. Dropping onto the belt, he bounced, hurt his knee, and started grabbing at the stone as he was carried up toward Ombra's angry eye. For McGraw, time was splintering into micro-moments, and the last ones were going too fast. He'd seen Bentley fling himself over the top of the giant crusher and land on the belt. So McGraw, who was still half stunned from hitting the ladder as he fell, had to find it in himself to run, even though every bone in his body ached and his brain was numb. He ran parallel with the moving belt that was now high above him, remembering that he had once thought that Bentley Ellicott was an 8-year-old lunatic who risked his life for nothing, and thinking it again for a tenth of a second before he yelled, "Jump! Jump in the name of God, Bentley! Jump before you get carried to the top and dumped down to the next goddamn crusher!" McGraw was running toward the tower with the spotlight on top of it, trying to see the kid on the belt above him. Charlie Phoebe stepped into the center of the stone yard. His face and shirt were spattered with blood. He, too, had seen Bentley fling himself onto the belt. Enough connective reasoning remained in Charlie to know that everything on the conveyor, to know where everything on the conveyor belt was going. He was sane enough to know that the boy would appear for a moment at the top of the tower before he was dropped into the crusher. Ombra saw with his searchlight eye. He roared a command with his voices in the machinery. Charlie raised the shotgun and pointed it at the top of the framework tower. He steadied its aim on a space between two slender uprights where Bentley would have to appear at the last second. Charlie's brain was filled with rapture. He was standing thus in the middle of the stone yard, a killer thrilled with what he had contracted to do, when Dick Amberstam shot him from 60 feet away. McGraw couldn't look at the top of the tower anymore because the eye of the demon that bestrode the world was burning into his pupils, trying to blind him. And so he looked up at the side of the moving belt as he ran, pushing his heavy body to its ultimate exertion, as the demon beside him thundered and devoured stone. Suddenly he saw Bentley's face appear over the side of the belt high above him, and McGraw thought he was a funny-looking little kid, peering over the edge like that, high and going higher, with an expression of triumph on his round, dirty face as McGraw shouted, "Jump, jump, I'll catch you, kid! Its eye is right ahead of you! In the name of our Lord Jesus Christ, jump!" Bentley's arms and legs appeared over the side of the belt. He pushed himself off, kicking in the air, falling 30 feet. The heart of McGraw the believer nearly burst as he threw himself forward and grabbed Bentley. His hurtling momentum carried them both into a pile of soft sand. Dick's third shot, meant to stop Charlie for sure, went wild. It hit the spotlight at the top of the tower. Ombra's eye went out. He is the lord of all infamous burnings. The hero Gilgamesh first sensed him in the heat of the day as he came up from the valley of the Euphrates. Ombra proclaimed his corrupt victory in the flames of Rome. His fiery hand caressed the martyred flesh of St. Joan, the human torch of Rouen, and his breath was the atomic wind of Nagasaki. Main Street lay like a deserted stage set. Spaced pools of lamplight shone on the village fronts that Charlie Phoebe had known all of his life. The hardware store, the police station, the drugstore. Beneath the lights, along the town wharf, Charlie's dying eye saw the freezing plant and the boathouse, pennants hanging on sailboat masts. The night wind no longer ruffled the water. Charlie Phoebe had slipped away, dying, from the stone yard. As the pain returned for the 100th time, journeying down his body to his legs, radiating from the hole in his chest. Charlie wondered where the wind had gone. He gripped the side of Willie Bill's pickup truck in case he fainted with the pain. He didn't have time for that. There was one more task left to do. Partly mad, partly a cogitator of last things, Charlie stumbled through the tall grass that grew in front of his hotel. He made it up the front steps and got across the porch. Faithful, he did the bidding of the voice that murmured in the aura of pain around him. He leaned against the front door until it opened, and made his way down the dark, rubble-strewn hallway, leaving his spoor as blood in the dust. He somehow managed to open the door of his room. He didn't need to hold on to anything as he crawled up the stairs, dragging a 5-gallon can of gasoline with him. Charlie's mind was living in the time before the burning. He knew that his dreams of wealth had their birth in fire. If he burned down the hotel, he would find Mrs. John Rutherford Hackett's diamonds, emeralds, rubies, gold and silver ornaments in the ash, among the charred timbers. He didn't know why he'd never thought of it before. Moonlight filled the entire 4th floor, because he had torn apart all the walls up there. Charlie crawled over the heaps of 2x4s and broken plaster on his hands and knees, dragging the red can. His body dripped blood, and the can slopped gasoline. When he got to the end of the room, the dream was waning. But the being that possessed Charlie gave him one final chance. Charlie propped himself against the studs of a ripped-apart wall. He lit a match with his bloody fingers so that he could see his dreams. But they weren't there anymore. He threw the match into the middle of the room and died. Stonehaven House Hotel became a torch of proclamation for Prince Ombra. It was a pyre for Charlie Phoebe's useless life. It was a conflagration for the Furies to dance by. Up and down the coast for miles and miles, people saw the fiery glow in the sky. The hotel's ghosts laughed and clapped as orange flame and black smoke soared through them toward the stars, and the burning floors gave way beneath them. The spirits of mad Mrs. Hackett and all the thousands who had visited and loved there had returned in their dying shapes to sing songs of immortality behind the smoldering, shattering windows. Ombra became heat and darkness. He listened to the legends of the world and knew that men had not forgotten him. He was weaker than he had been in all his lives. He had failed to destroy the child hero without a battle. Now it was imperative for him to get the battle over and done with, before the damnable memory of mankind further enfeebled him. First, the fire. Ombra, lord of all infamous burnings, made his sign in the night, so that the warrior who awaited him, and the virtuous who despised him, would know that he was still there. Then the sword. In the blazing radiance of the Stonehaven inferno, Prince Ombra proclaimed that when the sun came again, he would armor himself in the shape of his enemy's profoundest dread. Then he would go forth to combat the 1001st hero of the Borrowed Heart. And that's it for Chapter 15.